impressive, even when we weren't playing well. It's like we scored a point and felt like we were in the match. So really fun atmosphere and a lot to build on, and really proud just of where this program is, and excited. The beauty of volleyball is we have 25 some games, so excited to have another chance on Friday. Yeah, Cal, they're both really good. Cal has a really great player. She was the Pac-12 Freshman of the Year, so she's going to be super hard to stop. And then Stanford is ranked 3rd in the country, and they're just, I don't know if there's been very many years they've been outside of the top 10. So a really, really impressive program and a great team that'll be coming here on Sunday.
Dani, do you feel like you're in as good a shape as you could be in going into the ACC?
Yeah, it does get tough. We've lost to 2 top 5 opponents, so that's not like we've taken these bad losses. It's just when you get swept both times, maybe a little doubt creeps in. That'd be the only thing I'm thinking, how we're not in great shape. But I love this team. We got to figure a couple things out, but we have a lot of great players and potential to be really scary long term. And the goal is to be our best in December, and that's why we tested ourselves early to learn a lot.
You've said time and time again just how good the ACC is this year. Just how much has the 2 schools that you will play this week in the West Coast side of things elevated the conference?
Well, it was huge. Just those 2. Cal, again, had the Pac-12 Freshman of the Year. She's a great player, and just a different kind of style of volleyball the West Coast usually brings. And then Stanford immediately put the ACC arguably as the best conference in the country, especially at the top. 3 of the us, Pitt, and Stanford probably, I don't know what will be ranked today, but probably in the top 6. It's really impressive from one conference.
In the past, it felt like you guys would play a couple of L&N and go to the KFC Yum Center and kind of prep yourselves for that big environment. This year, it's kind of the opposite, going to a little bit more of an intimate setting. What's it going to be like kind of getting used to that setting again?
Yeah, it is crazy. We haven't even played an L&N yet, but I feel like our team's going to be really excited from the pregame flow, and the way we can prep and just be comfortable in our own arena is really nice. And then just to feed off that energy, L&N gets really loud and intimate, and we tend to play very well there.
Dani, adding Cal and Stanford to the ACC, does that expand your recruiting footprint at all to be able to say, hey, we play against, some of your local schools to kids on the West Coast or anything like that?
It does somewhat. I think we were already having a little bit of success on the West Coast. But this should elevate that, because we'll be traveling out there likely once a year, for sure every other year. And then the addition of SMU is really big, because Texas is a very hot recruiting base. So now we'll be going down to SMU, and I think that opens the door a little bit more for those recruits.
Dani, you're in the middle of it now, and you've got so many big games left. But do you feel like these last couple weeks, and especially like yesterday, when you look back, are kind of a moment to take this program to that next step you want it to?
Yes, in some ways, and no in others. The fact that we were the first game on ABC and playing against Nebraska, and everybody would think that Nebraska would get to host the first game on ABC. So the fact that it was in Louisville was huge for our program, and I think puts us in the talks that we're becoming a powerhouse every year, and that's what we want to be. But then the way you play, I thought, Nebraska definitely outplayed us and looked more physical. It's like, are we far away from being able to compete with them every single night? I don't know. That's what we're going to figure out, and that's why we have another great test on Sunday and Friday. But I think we're in a good place, so we'll see.
You mentioned the different style of the West Coast teams. How are they different?
Usually their ball control is really good, so they're great passing teams. They play a little faster. So the style's not a big difference. It's just, maybe just in a couple ways that we might not be used to.
it doesn't happen for you guys often, but whenever you do lose a matchup in straight sets, is there anything you do in the next couple days afterwards to kind of help get the team back on track, or is it just business as usual?
A lot of times it's business as usual. You don't want to overanalyze every single loss, but we do look at stats pretty hard, and when we break down film, it's like, where are the big weaknesses? And I think Nebraska, we knew some of our weaknesses, and they really exposed them, and so we'll try to figure out some tweaks we can do to improve those, and maybe make a few adjustments.
Dani, you mentioned some players last week that you thought were really starting to come along. Can you go over them again and tell us exactly who you think is going to be, even better now, later on than they are now?
Yeah, Sophia Maldonado-Diaz, the transfer from Arizona, she's hitting at a high percentage, and she didn't come here till July, so she really has only been here 2 full months, and she does some really impressive things, and I think the more comfortable she gets, she's going to be a force late in the year. I think Reese Robbins has played great statistically. She's been really good. And then I think our freshman setter Naelis Caballo has been solid and continues to improve each match, which usually freshman setters in particular take a little bit of time, and you might take a couple lumps, and what you're looking for is just a quick improvement from match to match. But DeBeer came alive yesterday. I think she was pretty dominant, and so that was good to see. And Charity, maybe didn't have her best match yesterday, but she's been having a phenomenal year. So I'm really excited to get those two playing great together, and then I think we can be pretty unstoppable.
What's the characteristic as a player that, as a coach, you want your team to have?
That's a great question. As a player, especially because I switched positions and I came into Nebraska as a setter, and I'd never really been a setter before, so I had a lot of switching in my career. So I always played with a little bit of a chip on my shoulder and super competitive, and I think this team has that. And I think that's kind of been a key of Louisville volleyball, is like, even when we're ranked high, we always feel like the underdog, and we always expect more from ourselves, but it's just, it feels a little bit like people doubt us from time to time, so we use that for fuel. But I also think consistent is huge, and that's what this team needs to get better at, is a little bit more consistency.
You mentioned obviously Anna and Charity being two of the lightning rods that you have on this team, but Reese, as you mentioned before too, seems to be coming into her own a little bit more. What's that next step for her to be able to take over games herself?
It's for her, it's consistency, and she'll have some amazing kills, and then she'll make a silly error, and that's usually a sign of a young player. She's only a sophomore, and she also switched positions, so a little more consistency from her, but and then just being a shutdown blocker. So in her position, that's what we need, and she can physically do that. It's getting in the right spots and reading the game, which is, from last year to this year, it's drastically improved, and it can still go another step.
I guess maybe a two-part. It seems like all of the top teams are playing each other and beating each other up.
Yeah.
Is that different, or has it always been that way a little bit? And then, second question, in regards to that, when do you start thinking about RPI as a coach?
No, I think it's different this year, and a big part of that is just the elevation of the sport of volleyball, more TV matches, more opportunities for big crowds. And if we really, as coaches, if we want to take our sport to the next level, then we're going to have to do some things that might be out of our comfort zone. So, you saw all the teams scheduling really hard and working to break attendance records and, have more nationally televised games. Like, they want to see great matches on TV. And for RPI, like for us, we got to think about it right away, and when you're scheduling, it's so important, because just the top 4 seeds and the fact you get to host if you become a top 4 seed is a big deal in the tournament. And the biggest indicator of that is the RPI, and that's what the committee uses. But, you have to win games too. So sometimes like, did we schedule too tough? Like, if we would have beaten them, would have it been better than playing a top 20 team and beating them? So it's a checks and balance.
One more question.
You mentioned Anna kind of coming alive, but it feels like she's been such a constant that I think most fans count on her no matter what match it is. What does coming alive look like for her, and where do you see her still getting better?
Yeah, she just took some really aggressive swings yesterday, and, she competed super hard. I thought she was good with her selection, too. Like, you saw her bounce the ball cross, you saw her tool the block line, so just really impressive with her range yesterday. And for her to continue to be a rock for this team, it comes with back row passing. We got aced 7 times yesterday in games 1 and 2, and that's hard to overcome against a great team. And it's very tough to carry the load offensively, defensively, and from a passing standpoint. But I think she knows that that's what she's going to have to do, and she's up for the challenge, and she's a great player. Like, that's somebody you want to take the last swing no matter, how the game's going. So, again, it was great to see her have a really great match. Like I said, when her and Charity sync up, that's going to be fun for us. Thank you all.